top 5 trade coming down. Expect it. Things are happening. New England Patriots in the top 5. Phil Perry, are we going to get a trade?
Don't rule it out. Don't rule it out. Because for the Patriots, that to me is maybe the best case scenario, is that you're able to trade down, add an additional valuable pick, maybe even a second-round pick, and still get a left tackle. And I think it's possible if you stay in the top 10. There are really 5 consensus first-round tackles in the draft. And it's Will Campbell. It's Armand Membu. Those are the 2 names that we've mentioned the most when it comes to the Patriots themselves at 4 overall. Kelvin Banks is in that tier. Maybe he's in a tier of his own, really, behind those 2 guys. And then you have Josh Simmons, who's coming off the injury from Ohio State. And you have Josh Connerly from Oregon. And you could even get another to sneak into the first round, maybe Ariante Ursary from Minnesota, because tackles always get pushed up and teams waiting on day 2 to try to find a starter at that position. It's not all that likely. So can they trade down and still get one of those top 3 guys? To me, would be the question. If that's to happen, what do you need? You need somebody who's willing to come up for a player not named Travis Hunter, who I believe is going to, and I know people in the league believe is going to Cleveland at 2 overall.
Yep.
And not coming up to take Abdul Carter, who most still believe will be the 3rd overall pick for the Giants. So who would that player be? It feels like it could be Ashton Genty. And so the 2 teams that I would have an eye on in terms of being realistic trade partners would be Chicago at 10 and Vegas at 6. I think both those teams have expressed in their own ways interest in Ashton Genty, and I think you could make the argument for both, even though they're picking in the top 10, that they're not all that far off from postseason contention, right? And so it makes a trade for a running back, which has obviously been a position that's been devalued over years in the NFL, a worthwhile endeavor, right? If you're the Patriots and you're drafting Ashton Genty at 4, that to me makes no sense.
Right.
You need so much more before you're even in any kind of conversation to be a winning football team. It doesn't make sense for you. But the Raiders just signed a veteran quarterback. They've got the oldest head coach in the league. Like, they actually have right now a pretty good offensive line. So you can make the argument there. You can make the argument in Chicago, where Ben Johnson's coming from Detroit. They invested highly in running backs. Jameer Gibbs, they drafted highly a couple years ago. That worked out really, really well in Detroit. And Ben Johnson wants to run the football. So you give you give Caleb Williams a talented young running back. Maybe that makes that offense that much better. So are you willing to, if you're the Patriots, if those teams want to, trade down to 6, trade down to 10? I would be. I would be if there's a second-round pick at stake. At 10, it gets a little dicier. Like, Banks might be gone by then. And the 3 best tackles in the draft might be gone.
That early, really. Yeah.
Could be gone by 10. Yeah. I could see the Raiders taking a tackle. I could see the Jets taking a tackle. You could see the Saints taking a tackle. Those are, the Saints pick at 9. So there is some risk involved there. But that to me would be really enticing if I'm New England and I'm fielding those calls. And if I can trade back and still get Kelvin Banks, that to me is maybe in some ways the best case scenario.
6 feels like a fit because I think the Patriots want to take Will Campbell. I believe they want to take Will Campbell. I think you can still get Will Campbell at 6. Jaguars don't strike me as a tackle team.
Nope, I agree with you there. They just re-signed their left tackle, and Walker Little, who's a relatively young guy, but they just signed him to a big extension. I know it's a new front office there, but they just gave him real money. And at right tackle, they have a pretty good young player who was drafted a couple years ago. So they're not going to be a tackle team. And so, yeah, maybe you could just move down a couple spots and still get your guy.
Would you be willing to take less than normal value to go down 2 spots just to accumulate an extra pick or 2?
Yeah, to go to 6, I think I might be.
10.
To go to 10 because I am taking on that risk of missing out on the first 3 tackles. That's a drop down where I really would want. I think they pick at 39, I want to say, in the second round. The Bears, so the pick after the Patriots at 38 overall in the second round. I would want that pick to go from 4 to 10. But Banks is an interesting one because he's just sort of, athletically, he's not quite where Membu or Campbell are. Those guys are really elite in terms of their movement skills. But he's very solid. He's played a lot of left tackle at Texas against really good competition. His stock fell late last year, in part because he was playing through injury. His ankle really was a problem, is what scouts have told me late in the season. And so, you could be getting a pretty good value on that guy, a guy who might be considered a higher draft pick had he not been hurt at the end of the year. And then when it comes to the things that we hear so much about Will Campbell, right? Oh, he's a variable guy. Personality, football character, the demeanor, the leadership. Kelvin Banks has a lot of those things too. A-plus human being. I had one scout tell me, "Hey, I hope my kids are like Kelvin Banks someday. I want to give his parents a standing ovation." And does that matter? Is that what should be at the top of your list as a scout or an NFL evaluator?
No,
at this
that's
point
what
in
you're
time?
leading the scouting report with. Probably not
No,
great.
but to me, that's not the leading bullet point. But it's somewhere on the paper. And that I do think matters to Mike Vrabel in this front office.
All right, Diana Rossini with the latest when it comes to trading in the top 5 as well. She came out with a long article this morning kind of breaking down some news and notes that she has. She writes, the Browns, Giants, and Patriots are fielding calls for the number 2, 3, and 4 picks per league sources. The majority of teams looking to move up see Colorado corner/wide receiver Travis Hunter as their target should they be able to entice one of those teams, particularly Cleveland, with a suitable package. All 3 teams are listening. Now, to me, trading up Travis Hunter for 4 really doesn't make a ton of sense. So like you said, it would probably be like an Ashton Genty or something like that if someone was to trade into that 4 spot.
Yeah.
But for the Patriots, potentially trading up for a Travis Hunter or an Abdul Carter, do you write that off at all, Phil?
No, I wouldn't. I love that idea. I think they should be pursuing that, quite frankly. And we took a look at this last night on Early Edition, going all the way back. You have to go back to 2012 to find a trade where a team went from 4 to 3. Right? So if you want to ensure that you get either Hunter or Carter, the 2 blue-chip players in this draft, not named Ashton Genty, then you might be looking at that trade as sort of the precedent, and it doesn't cost all that much. It is just 1 spot, so it makes sense that it doesn't cost all that much. But that year, and I believe the trade was for Trent Richardson, the running back, and that didn't go so well for Cleveland. But they went back, or they went up 1 spot by giving away 3 day 3 picks.
Okay.
So I think it was 1/7 and maybe 2 4ths. I would be willing to do that if it means getting either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. I just think, especially in a draft like this one, where by the time you get to day 3, late day 3 especially, it's just not an incredibly deep draft. I think it's pretty good, rounds 2 and 3, but those day 3 picks, to me, I'm willing to move those in a heartbeat. And so I think they should be considering it. I don't know what those teams will be asking for in order to move up to take one of those blue chip guys.
Would that hurt their chances to get back up into the first round to get a tackle, though? If you go up and get Carter, you still need a left tackle. That essentially forces them to make sure they get back into the first round to get a tackle again. Would that hurt their chances to do that?
It could, but I think if you're moving back into the first round, you're talking about something more significant that you'd be giving up. So if you could, for instance, McCarthy, if you could get from 4 to 3 for your 4th round pick and a future 3rd and 2 7ths. You have 2 7ths this year. Okay. You still have 2 3rds this year to play around with. Maybe package those together if you want to get up from 38 into the first round. But now with 2 trades, we have just completely annihilated essentially all of their draft capital in this draft, which, again, to me, if you come away from the draft with Abdul Carter and a tackle that you feel good about, you might be willing to just kick your feet up on the desk in front of you and just take the rest of the weekend off. But I don't know if they're going to really be willing to do that. They have so many needs, and the more darts you have to throw at the board, generally speaking, the better.
617-779-0985 is the telephone number. A couple other news and notes that came out. Peter Schrager writing today. Will Campbell is a smart, tough, dependable, and leader in a position of great need. He might not be a Hall of Famer like Orlando Pace, but the Patriots would be getting a day 1 starter and a culture guy on their offensive line. He thinks it's going to be Will Campbell if they stick overall at 4. If they don't move up or down the board, do you think Will Campbell's the guy, Phil?
I do, and I felt this way for a long time. I know they've liked him for a long time. I think this has been trending in this direction for a long time, and then especially when you go into free agency and you can't get the guys you want to play that position, I don't know how it moves you off of that spot. And I know people are focused on the arm length. The Patriots have known for over a year now that he doesn't have long arms, and they like him anyway. And he's only helped himself in the process in terms of how he's handled the meetings, how his interactions have gone with Mike Vrabel and others inside the organization. And so, to me, the pick makes too much sense. If they do stick at 4, that's what I would anticipate
Do
happening.
you think the belief, though, in Will Campbell at 4 overall and inside those walls at Gillette is that he's our left tackle of the future? Or is it, hey, we think he could potentially play left tackle, but even if we swing and miss with him at the tackle position, we know at least we're getting an above-average guard?
The people that I've spoken to see him as a tackle.
Okay.
And so, listen, you never say never, and you always leave open the possibility that your evaluation is off. You always leave open the possibility that when he gets to this level, things happen in the NFL draft. We know that. And I think even people in the league, as much as their jobs and their livelihoods depend on their ability to find the right people, everybody knows that the draft is a crapshoot to a degree. And so, yeah, you never say never about moving a guy. But the people that I've spoken to see him as having the potential to be a really good guard. Or, excuse me.
Tackle?
Really
I was
good
like, I'm not reassuring you.
tackle. Really
Not
good
reassuring.
tackle in this league.
We've also heard that the team wants to take the best player available. Now, I understand, by the way, if the best player available is a running back, maybe that doesn't make the most sense. But it makes me really nervous if you're handing in the card, and as you're handing in the card, the rest of the NFL is celebrating, saying, yes, they took Will Campbell 4th overall. Doesn't make me feel great about the selection. And that's why I am starting to kind of come on board with, if you are going to take one of these tackles, if there's a trade open to you, and Beetle hit on this last week, dropping down and taking one of those guys and at least accumulating a few more assets makes a lot more sense to me than sticking at 4, taking a Will Campbell, and then again having the rest of the league kind of laugh and make fun of you for doing it.
Yeah,
and I'm being extreme with that, obviously, but I don't feel great about the value at 4 overall of Will Campbell.
No, but this is the position the Patriots are in. If you were set at tackle and you didn't have to, feel like you were quote unquote forcing it. I'm not saying they are. I think Campbell is just in that tier of players that are all relatively similar when it comes to talent level. So the teams McShay might be talking to say, oh yeah, please don't take Will Campbell. He's, in our grading system, he's nowhere near, name your Michael Williams, the edge defender out of Georgia. That might be how it is on their board.
Yep.
But I think league-wide, the opinion is he's right in the same tier as a Michael Williams or a Jalen Walker or a Mike Green out of Marshall, the pass rusher. So, I think teams are just going to have, varying degrees of how much they like these guys. There is a large swath of players that the league seems to like but not love after those first 2 blue chip guys. That's just the way it is. It's the unfortunate reality of the situation for New England.
But best player available is generally a crock anyway, right? It's best player available for your team and your needs. Like, best player available is just the excuse. You say, well, he was the number 1 player on our board. It's how you defend every single draft pick you've ever made. Like, you're not going to take a running back if you don't need a running back. If the best player available was a quarterback, would the Patriots take one? Should the Patriots take one because it's the best player available? No, of course not. This is absolutely the position they're in. If they come out of this draft without knowing who their left tackle is entering 2025, they're screwed. They've completely messed it up. And yeah, listen, you did it in a year where there isn't the blue chip left tackle prospect, but you still have to take one. They cannot come out of this thing without taking left tackle, and the safest way to get one is to take him 4 overall, even if the value isn't great there.
I mean, so what happens if you can't play tackle?
Well, that's what happens when your team sucks. Sorry.
Well, you play him at guard, and I understand the people that don't want that. You do need guards.
Right.
And guard is a more valuable position, I think, than it's been given credit for. The best guards in the league make $20 million a year now. So guard is becoming, like it or not, the way the league is handling its finances and how they spend at different positions, they are handling guard as though it is a quote-unquote premium position. Now, how many running backs in the NFL are making $20 million a year? They're not.
Right.
So if he ends up being a guard, and again, I don't think they're going into it with that mindset, but there is value in that.
There is.
And as much as you would love to get a Ryan Wendell, an undrafted guy, and a Dan Connolly, an undrafted guy to come in and play guard, the league's different now. And there are too many freaks that play defensive on the defensive interior. There are too many unbelievable pass rushers that can completely ruin a game at the defensive tackle position, that if you're not good at guard, you're probably not good. And so there is an argument to be made there too. And again, I would rather not take. Listen, again, perfect world. You're probably trading down and taking whatever tackle is left. But if you get a player who can play and play a long time for you, even if it's at guard, to me, it's better that than completely whiffing on a pick.
I get that. No, and you're not wrong. It's just also if he winds up a guard, and look, it's past mistakes, and it is what it is, and you're in the situation you're currently in, but you spent $20 million on Mike Uwenu, first-round pick on Cole Strange, countless third-round, fourth-round picks on guards over the past few years as well. That's a lot of capital.
Yep.
And now the number 4 overall pick to solve the guard situation?
Well,
it's tough, man.
You get, I think you have to talk about worst-case scenarios for any of these guys.
Yeah.
Because there is no prospect that you're going to take at 4 that is without warts.
That's what I was going to say. So you don't see a defensive player that you look at and go, all right, I know we are going to get a very productive, maybe it's not Abdul Carter, but we're going to walk away with a very productive NFL player. Yeah. I
mean, the name that's been thrown around quite a bit has been Jalen Walker.
Yeah.
And I know, there are fans of his in New England. But Jalen Walker is a 6'1", 240-pound edge defender.
It's undersized, yeah.
And I've talked to coaches that look at him and say he's just gonna, plain and simple, he's just going to need to put on weight to play on first and second down in our league. And they don't view him as an off-the-ball linebacker. So he played off-the-ball linebacker. He played on the edge. He's one of these hybrid guys. And there's a lot of intrigue in players like that because in the right system, the right scheme, you can get really creative with somebody like that. You can blitz him up the middle. You can play him off the edge on third down. You could use him as a quarterback spy. And I think he might be the best quarterback spy in the draft. Fantastic. But I've also heard comps to Jalen Walker as Andrew Van Ginkel. Anybody know who Andrew Van Ginkel is? He's one of these versatile guys, and he's in Brian Flores' defense in Minnesota. He used to be in Miami, and he gave the Patriots a hell of a time when he was in Miami. And he's a good player.
Yeah.
It's not the 4th overall.
You don't
pick,
take him in the top 5. So that's the kind of player you're talking about. So you want to look at somebody like that and say he's safe. I can direct you to people that are in the edge defender market that look at Jalen Walker like he's a second-round pick. You don't hear anybody say that about Will Campbell.
Yeah.
So to me, he is, in many ways, the safest option for them at 4.
I just don't think you can fight the draft, guys. You just have to accept it. It's not a good draft. The draft kind of sucks. You need a left tackle. You take Will Campbell if he ends up being a guard. Not to say what are you going to do, but the worst case scenario for the Patriots is you don't take Will Campbell and you don't have anybody protecting Drake May this year. And if he ends up being a guard, don't get me wrong, that sucks at number 4. I get that, but you picked a bad year to have needs. You picked a bad year to be at the top of the draft.
And you do have to play the game a little bit when it comes to the draft, meaning, okay, yeah, you could go with the edge defender. You could go with Jalen Walker's teammate, Michael Williams, who's much more the prototype. He's 6'5", 265 pounds, long arms. Played hurt last year, still had a really good year with second-team All-SEC. You could do that in the first round, and now you're looking for a tackle in the second round. How many really good tackles come out of the second round?
Fair.
And especially this year, you're probably not finding one. Whereas on the edge, defensive interior, it is a much deeper draft class. So maybe that's the way you want to allocate your resources. If you feel like, that's a premium position, playing on the edge of your defense, and you want to get a guy, in my opinion, you're going to like your combination of tackle, edge defender much better if you take the tackle first and the edge defender second versus the opposite.
I've come over to Beatles' side. I'm trading back. That's a final answer. Trading back.